All right, so let's give one more minute to see if we have anybody else join us, and then I will get started so I don't take up too much of your time this evening. All right, so I'll go ahead and get started. And so let me just fix this a little bit, sorry. So for those of you who have not met me yet, my name is Tim Townsend. I'm the Youth Activities Manager here with GU Athletics and Recreation, and I oversee P.A.S.S Camp. And so tonight what we're going to do in this town hall is just kind of go over what the new expectations and guidelines that are out there with camp and how it will look this summer for your camper. Like I said a few minutes ago, if you do have any questions at all, please feel free to enter them into the chat. Myself and then also one of our staff here at Ritchie Center, Jesse Batter, he'll be along. So if you do see him responding to questions or myself, one of us will get back to you, make sure you do get that question answered. I am going to be going through a PowerPoint presentation just so you can kind of look through this with me, and so that way as we go, if you want to read through it, I'll try not to talk too much, but I do want to make sure that I go over those important bullets that you'll need to know. But before I move on from each slide, I will try to take a peek at the chat to make sure if there's something I can address right then that I will. So if you just give me one moment, I'm going to share my screen and then we will get right into it. All right, so as you can tell, P.A.S.S Camp 2020. So let's talk about before you come to camp every day. So every day that your camper attends P.A.S.S Camp, looking at next week or the coming future weeks, you all will need to fill out a visitor screening form at least 2 hours before you arrive. And this form cannot be completed the night before. It has to be done the morning of before you come to camp. And this, we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but that form is crucial because that's what we're being held to at the university, as making sure that we are, all of our campers and our staff are all coming in healthy and ready for a day of camp. And so just again, 2 hours before you come to camp is when that form has to be filled out. You'll be receiving an email tomorrow with all the information for camp activities, what to bring, all that good stuff. And then the link to this form will be located in that email. So be sure to bookmark that because you'll be visiting it quite a bit, as you can imagine. So the questions that you'll be asked in that visitor screening form. So it'll be your kind of general health questions as to if you have any symptoms of COVID-19, anything that would be leading up to that. If you've been around anyone who has had a positive test result in the last 14 days, you'll be asked if you left the state in the last 14 days. We do have a policy right now that if you have left the state, that once you return, you have to self-quarantine before you can come to campus. And that's really important because I know we've had some holidays recently and maybe some family out of town that you want to go visit. But if you have traveled in the last 14 days, it is important to know that you have to self-quarantine for 14 days before coming to camp. If that does affect you in any way, please reach out to us, and so that way we can kind of walk you through what options that you have available. Once you do go through that form, it's going to ask you some questions. The first name of the person that you'll be coordinating to visit with, and that's the Ritchie Center. So you'll do first name Ritchie, last name Center, and then the email address is recreation@du.edu. And then as far as the buildings that you're using, you'll be using the Ritchie Center, and then the room that you're visiting is P.A.S.S Camp. And if you don't remember this from tonight, don't worry, it'll be listed in that email that'll be sent out to you. And so don't worry, no test after this, but Monday there will be when you actually have to do it. Camp preparation. So when you're getting ready for camp and you're packing your camper's backpack, there are a few things this year that obviously are going to be a little bit different than in years past if you've been with us before. But here's a list of everything that you need to make sure that you send for your camper every day so they can have a successful day. So number one, you need to make sure that they have a filled water bottle, and it is for your child's use only. We do not promote sharing of any kind in general at camp. And then on top of that, with our current situation, it's even more crucial that there is no sharing allowed. All campers will need to have a face mask on, and they'll be wearing that throughout their entire day at camp. And so it's important to send that mask and then also send an extra one in case something happens throughout the day. You know, like things happen, they're young, they're walking around, masks fall off. So that extra one is really important to have just in case. If for some reason they lose it and they don't have an extra, we do have some on hand that we'll provide. You get one complimentary one, but then after that, we will charge moving forward for those masks. You'll need to provide sunscreen that your child can apply. Something that I recommend for families is sending a spray, because that seems to be the easiest option for a camper to be able to spray on as they're kind of going through the day. Sorry, I'm trying to act out how to spray on sunscreen, but that seems to be the best mode of getting sunscreen on our campers. Please provide your own hand sanitizer that your child can apply. It could be a little bottle that will just get them through the week. It just needs to be something in their bag they have just in case. We will have some on hand. All of our coaches carry some in their backpack that they can apply, but it's also good just to have for your child in case for some reason they need to put some on before they make it to a bathroom to wash their hands. Please send a change of clothes. It gets hot outside, they get sweaty. We might do a water activity where they get their shirt or shorts wet. So it's always good to have a backup pair of clothes just in case. And then pack any necessary equipment that you want to send with your camper. That's swimsuit, a towel for swim days. You'll get a schedule about what days you'll be swimming, a helmet if you're 8 years old or under for ice skating. If they do have their own skates, you're welcome to send those, and they can use those when they do ice skate. You'll have that schedule to know what days. But you are welcome to send any of that equipment along with your camper. This year, we will not be offering snack or a packed lunch with the new guidelines that we have with the health department and state. And so we are asking families to please make sure that you pack at least 2 snacks for your campers. I can tell you they move around a lot. They're very active all day. I highly recommend sending an extra snack just in case, because they are very hungry, as you can imagine. You probably see that at home. So an extra snack or 2 is a really great idea. Along with those snacks, please send a packed lunch, something healthy that you know that they'll eat and help keep them going throughout a long day of playing games and practicing their drills with sports. So make sure it's something that they can definitely have and hold them throughout the entire day. The backpack, water bottle, sunscreen, hand sanitizer, everything that you send with your camper, please clearly write their first and last name on all of them. A hint that I can give you with hand sanitizer and with sunscreen or anything like that is to put the label on with the name, or if you write it with Sharpie, but then cover it with a clear piece of Scotch tape or packing tape. That will help the name from smearing and being removed. The goal is that if for some reason they leave it somewhere, we can easily grab that and then be able to come back and get that to you at the end of the day or either that next morning at drop-off. So I'm just going to take a quick peek at the chat real quick. It looks like we're okay on this. So one question I will just go ahead and address that I saw before we move on is that will they carry their backpacks with them all day? They will. So the backpacks will be with them at all times. They won't have a station necessarily that they can leave them. And so what they'll do is they'll get from their one point to another. Wherever they arrive, we have spaces laid out that they'll be able to put their backpack spaced away from each other, so that way they're not having to carry it during activities, but they will carry it during transition times. One thing I do want to mention, kind of learning from this week, is that we did have some campers who insisted to bring their own full sports bag with baseball bats, hockey stick, everything that you can imagine, and that's okay. But I do want to just recommend that if you send that, please send something you know they won't struggle to carry it. So if it's a backpack, that's ideal because it's on their back. The duffel bags seem to be a little bit harder for some of these campers to be carrying around because they're pretty heavy. So I highly recommend investing in a backpack over a duffel if you can. But if it's a duffel, totally fine. We'll figure out how we can work with them. All right, so arriving at camp. So this year we will be doing a curbside drop-off and pickup service. So that way when you all are coming in, the parents, you all will not have to get out of the car at all. And you're encouraged not to get out of the car because we are trying to limit having the parents actually in program space. And so we're limiting who is coming in and out. So we're breaking the groups up into Group A and Group B. The check-in time, if you're assigned to Group A, and just so you know, you'll get this all tomorrow in the email with what team you're on and what group you're going to be assigned to. So Group A, you'll need to drop off between 8 and 8:30, and then your pickup time will be 3:30 to 4. If you're in Group B, your drop-off time is 8:45 to 9:15, and then you'll pick up between 4:15 and 4:45. So one thing I just want to point out with those pickup times is it's really important to make sure that you arrive in your assigned pickup time and you do not come early or late. You know, looking at this week, we had a couple of instances that we worked with, but moving forward, we're going to have to institute a late check-in or late checkout fee. And so that's $2.50 per minute per family. So the reason why we're doing that is we have to disinfect and clean and space out the groups as best as we can and avoid the interaction of other groups with each other. And so it's not to make it a pain for drop off or pickup. It's really there just to make sure that we have time to clean, get group space, and avoid those interacting times that could possibly be a risk. Carpooling, we know a lot of families kind of pick their weeks together so they can potentially carpool. We do not encourage that this summer in order to limit the interaction for any sickness to be spreading. And if you do decide to carpool, that is between you and the other family you're doing that with, and you will assume that risk and just be prepared that we can't always accommodate the carpooling time. So if your friend has a later time, we may not be able to make that work to align those times for your carpool situation. So just keep that in mind. All right, so we got a lot of information here, so I'm going to try not to read at you too much, but there are some very important pieces I just want to make sure that you understand. So first off, you all as parents must make sure that you wear a face mask when you come to pick up and drop off both. So when you're pulling through in your car, you have to have your mask on, so that way when you are interacting with staff and checking in, we're keeping each other safe and accountable there. So you report to your location for drop off and pickup, and that's going to be Lot T. If you've been here before, that's where you normally would park. If you have not, it's off of Asbury, and it's located right below the tennis courts. And it's kind of like a little parking garage if you haven't seen it. So you can't miss it. We have signs everywhere to make sure you get to the right spot. This is where that health screening form comes into play. Once you get here, they will confirm that you have completed that visitor screening form. And I can't tell you enough is to make sure you fill it out beforehand, unless you want to give us a few minutes of your time to fill it out parked before you can drop off. So it's just really important to make sure that's done before you arrive, so that saves you time and your camper time from sitting in the car, hanging out, filling out that form. If you have trouble before you get here, don't worry. We'll have some stuff for you here that you can fill it out on an iPad or on your phone. We'll have the link for you. Once you have completed that screening form and you're cleared to go, you'll be directed to follow the signage to your drop-off location, where you'll be greeted by myself or another one of our staff who will help your child out of the car and send them to the location where they can be with camp for the rest of the day. When you do come back for pickup, you will need to have a picture ID. One of our staff will make sure that we check that to make sure you're authorized to pick up, and then you can move on from there. So it's so important. If you're sending grandma or grandpa or a friend of the family, please remind them to grab that ID. We run into it pretty often that surprisingly some people just forget their IDs. And so please make sure they have some form of ID with them. When your camper gets to the drop-off location, we'll make sure they have everything in their backpack and that they're good to go, not missing anything. And then before they can enter the facility, we're going to be checking their temperatures. So right now, the requirement is they have to have a temperature below 100.4 degrees. So when we take that temperature, if for some reason it is that or higher, we'll have to have that conversation and ask you not to attend camp that day. The other part of that is with that screening form, you'll be filling out if there are any symptoms or any signs of illness, because this year we're going to have a very strict illness policy that if they're feeling ill at all, they cannot be at camp that day. And if they're at camp, we'll go touch base on this a little bit later, but we will ask you to come and pick them up, so that way we're not risking any kind of spread while they're here and having a good day at P.A.S.S camp. So once they get out of the car, they'll be escorted to the location, and then they will hang out with their coaches and the rest of their team until that time is over, and then head out for their day. If you're dropping off medication, anything like that, we'll touch base with you tomorrow to make sure that you're prepared, and then you'll meet us on Monday morning in a separate spot in the garage where you can give us that medication. All right, and then just a reminder, please do your best not to arrive late so we don't have to charge that late check-in fee. Just keep that in mind, please. So our camp procedures. We talked about this just a moment ago, but just the importance of sending those cloth face coverings, masks for your camper. It can be something that wraps around the ears. It could be one of the buffs that you pull up over your nose, something like that. Please make sure that it fits their face. We've seen quite a few times this week that campers where it's constantly falling down, or it's a very loose buff that won't come up and stay up. So please make sure you send a mask that actually fits their face and that they can keep on as they're moving through campus all day. Our staff here, including myself, daily we fill out the mandatory health screening process form to make sure that we also are having healthy staff come in and interacting with our campers who are coming into camp every day. So it's not just you all who have to fill it out, we do too. We're going to be encouraging campers to make sure that they maintain physical distancing, 6 feet or greater if they can. We have a couple different things that we do with them to help teach them how to gauge that. And so we'll be really pushing that while they're here during their day. That water bottle that I talked about, please make sure it's labeled because they'll be taking water breaks, and that's an opportunity that they can take a break with their mask off. And they'll be going to a contactless water fill refill station where staff will manage the filling of water, not campers. So they'll be wearing gloves, making sure it's safe, and we keep it clean and disinfected. Your camper will be placed in a small group of no more than 10 campers, and they stay together all day with that team and that team alone. They will not meet with other camps or other campers throughout the day. They will only be working with that team specifically, and they will be assigned one coach, and that coach will stay with them the entire week. And that group of 10 will stay the same the entire week. So who they are with on Monday, that is who they're going to be with the entire week, and we cannot switch after they have been together on Monday. We're going to prioritize outdoor activities, especially with all of our sports and drills that we're working on. It's actually a great situation. It worked out really well for us so far this week. And then we'll be actually teaching them and reinforcing COVID-19 prevention measures. That's good hygiene, hand washing, making sure they cover their mouth when they cough or sneeze, and things like that. And we built in some pretty good size transition times to make sure everyone washes their hands every single time they play any of our activities and sports. All right, so if we don't have soap and water available, that's when we'll be able to give them some hand sanitizer. But that's also why we encourage you all to send some as well, just in case, especially if you have a preference of what kind of hand sanitizer your child is putting on, but just make sure it does have at least 60% alcohol. We, as the Ritchie Center as a whole, have increased our sanitation and disinfecting procedures at all camp locations. They're throughout the day constantly being sprayed down and cleaned to ensure that we don't have any situations where any sickness could be spread. Each camper's backpack, like I said earlier, will be separated from each other, so that way they are not near each other and hopefully risking any kind of contamination as well. During lunch, campers will bring their own lunch. They're spaced 6 feet apart. They have a seat. We have a really awesome spot here at Ritchie Center that's covered and nice and cool all day. They go sit there. We spread them out in their team, and then they can sit and have their lunch, and then after that, move on to their next activity. We are, like I said, on a heightened alert for any sickness or symptoms. And so please, if you are in a situation where you wake up and your camper is not feeling well, please do us a favor and not bring them to camp. And then that also will help you that we won't have to call you within a day and ask you to come pick up because of any potential exposure. So please just be on top of that as much as we are. That support is really appreciated. We do have a space that we will be able to take a camper who is sick. It is located in the Stapleton Tennis Pavilion. It's our med room. It has a cot and a first aid and a restroom in that room. And so that way, if for some reason they do need to have some private time if they're not feeling well, they will go there. And then they'll be cared for with our staff. And we have a nurse on call that we can reach out and get advice from. But do know that we would do that along with calling you as parents to please come and pick up your child within 30 minutes. After they do use that room, it is thoroughly disinfected each time. For our staff, if they are dealing with a sick camper, we do provide protective equipment that they can wear if they are having to deal with that ill situation. And then throughout the day, in general situations, our staff are all required to wear masks at all times, and they do have gloves if they would prefer to wear those throughout the day as well. That gloves are not required, but they are available if they would like to have that. Like I said, we have our nurse on call that we can reach out to her for any illness or injury of campers, and then she can address any next steps or anything we can share with our families. Campers with symptoms of COVID, they would be asked to be excluded from P.A.S.S camp until at least 72 hours after they have their last symptom or no fever. And then if they have had COVID symptoms, we do ask that 10 days have passed since their first symptom or otherwise required by our local or state orders. If we do have an injury during P.A.S.S camp that's not illness related, we'll make sure that we call you right away so that way you know what happened. If we can't get a hold of you, we go down the emergency contact list that you filled out prior to attending camp as part of your registration, and we'll go down until we finally get a hold of someone. So if you do see that call, I can tell you it's typically an 871 number after 303, so that's us. And make sure you do answer the phone because it could be something that we need to address with you. And we want to make sure that you can get here quickly to pick them up if that's required. If for some reason something happens, we can't get a hold of parents and it's serious enough that we do need to call for medical attention, we will call and then we will make sure they get escorted to a healthcare facility. Checkout. So this is very similar to your check-in process. Please make sure you wear a cloth mask. It's located in Lot T at the Stapleton Tennis Pavilion. You'll pull through, a staff member will greet you, ask for your ID, make sure you're authorized to pick up that child, and then you'll be able to pull down, and then we will call for them on the walkie and have them escorted down, and we will load them into the car for you. Again, please don't exit the car. Well, it's a pretty fast process. It's been pretty good so far, but the times that get a little crazier are when parents get out of the car to greet and everything, which is great, but we do ask that you stay in the car in order for us to keep the line moving and then also limit that time of having multiple people in our program space. Again, just a reminder about that late fee. If you are running late, please reach out. There's a phone number in the email you'll get tomorrow. You can call that number. It can access everyone here at the Ritchie Center to make sure we do know what's going on. And just a disclaimer here is that we do have the right to refuse any participation in future sessions if we can't if we're at a point where participants are not following staff instructions or violating health and safety measures. So hopefully we won't get to that point with anyone, but that is there just in case it does happen. While at camp, each day, each group will meet, they'll go over camp rules, their schedule for the day, staff before they leave locations, make sure that they are taking water breaks and they have a full water bottle throughout the day. They make sure that they understand the face covering and face mask usage. I go over that with them personally every morning to make sure they have a good understanding as to why and how we can make sure that they are doing it and tips for the day, all that good stuff. We talk about COVID prevention, including hand washing and covering our mouth and sneezing and all that good stuff, and then what they need to do if they are feeling sick. And if that happens, they need to talk to their coach, who then talks to me, and then we kind of take care of it from there. Our camps, we are on a rotation of groups moving from space to space, and that rotation includes gaps in time to make sure we disinfect each space after the campers have been there and any equipment has been used. We disinfect that as well. They will be with a coach the entire time, making sure that they are safe and that they are spaced and masks on, all that good stuff. At each venue, there's a storage location for their backpacks, and then they have their equipment for all of their activities. And then that equipment, like I said, it gets disinfected after each use. We have staff who go around and they make sure that's done. And then there's markings in each location so they know exactly where to be for their 6 feet apart on spacing. When they do leave their venues, like I said, there's time in there for transition to sunscreen, hand wash, bathroom, all that good stuff to make sure that they are staying on top of, not getting sunburned, and then keeping their hands clean, everything that they need to do to help hopefully promote that good hygiene. Here's an example of what the schedule would look like. So this is just an example of Monday the 13th. Obviously, this changes every week given the sports that we're choosing to do. All of our sports, we're giving a priority to those who promote social distancing. So things like basketball, where they can still be in their location 6 feet apart, doing their drills, and then we've come up with lesson plans to promote them still learning, but then also being socially distant. Then in the middle of the day, each team gets an opportunity to swim or ice skate. Those teams will flip-flop each day. And then on the other side of the screen there, you can see kind of how we have the courts and the fields laid out in order to promote social distancing. And then when they're crossing the fields, there's walkways that are about 20 feet wide in case 2 groups do come, that they are spaced very far apart so they don't interact at all. While at camp, I mentioned earlier, campers are allowed to bring their own equipment. So if you see that we are doing an activity that they would like to bring something of their own, something like their skates or maybe a lacrosse stick, a hockey stick, that's okay. You can send that. But like I said, just know they're carrying it around all day. So send it with something appropriate that they could carry it with. If they use our equipment that we provide, it is cleaned and disinfected before and after each use. I talked about lunch earlier, but again, just a reminder, they sit 6 feet apart, making sure that they are spaced and not mingling with other campers. And then if for some reason we do have inclement weather, we have space within the Ritchie Center that they will go to stay away from any lightning or thunder or anything like that to make sure that they are safe. And so we make sure that they have space either in Gates Fieldhouse or the Magnus Arena concourse to get them out of that bad weather. This is a quick overview of our cleaning and disinfection process. This is what we do every day to make sure that your campers are safe and anywhere that they go throughout the day is clean and disinfected. We use a cleaning solution called Virex 2. It completely kills everything within 10 minutes, and so that's why that rotation gives that time between to make sure everything has that time to completely be disinfected and cleaned before somebody touches any other equipment. We do not have drinking fountains. Again, I'm saying it a lot, that water bottle is crucial, so please make sure you send that, and even maybe an extra in the backpack just in case, because we do not have one that we will provide to them to pretty much keep that chance of sharing things out of the window of opportunity. Hand washing. This just kind of goes over some of the things that we'll be doing with them to help give them ideas to make sure they're washing for a minimum of 20 seconds. And then we kind of go over that with them. We do not provide air dryers. They all use towels. And so that's just something I had a question about this week. So just so you all know, we don't use air dryers. And then our staff, like I said, we all have to wear face coverings throughout the day, including myself, except when eating or drinking. If they do take water breaks, and same for campers. They need to wear their masks throughout the day. They can take a break when they are eating or drinking, or if they are struggling, we instruct them to go see their coach and let them know, and then they are allowed to step aside probably about 6-8 feet away from the group within coach's eyesight to take a moment, catch their breath, take the mask off for a moment, but then they are required to come back with their mask on. All right, so what I'll do here is I'll kind of open it up for any questions that anyone may have. Feel free to throw those into the chat and I can address them with the group. If we don't, then we'll kind of find a point to wrap up, but we'll just take a moment or two to see if we have any questions rolling in that I can answer for everyone. I'll go ahead and address it because it was in here already, but somebody did ask about the water refill stations. At every single location, we have 2 to 3 water coolers available, so that way everyone who is there can stop, fill up their water bottle, by a staff member, and then be able to make sure they have adequate water throughout the day. And we talked about the backpacks. I think that's everything. If you have a question and we don't address it today and it's after this Zoom call, you'll receive that email tomorrow with all the information for camp for next week. Please feel free to reach out. We have plenty of staff who are willing to kind of guide you through what a week looks like here. And then if you think of anything at all, we're also here Monday morning and we can make sure you're ready to go. So just make sure we pack that bag all good for everyone and we'll kind of take it from there. All right, so if I think that's it, then we'll go ahead and we're going to wrap up this meeting. And like I said, reach out with anything that you need. And we're really excited to see you all next week at camp. It's been a little quiet around here, so it's nice to have campers back around here and just kind of livening things up. So we're looking forward to seeing you all. Have a great rest of your night.